Hello and welcome to another YouTube tutorial by Peakboard. Today, we'd like to give you a basic tutorial on the subject of scripting with the Peakboard Designer. In order to make the creation of visualizations with Peakboard as simple as possible, we're going to try to reduce the necessity for scripts as much as possible. The introduction of data flows, which allows us to process data using automatic workflows, allows us to do this quite effectively. In the event that it's nonetheless necessary to create a script, we do so using our script editor. We can reach the editor in two ways, either via the Explorer under Scripts, where we can create the desired script such as, for example, a timer script, or by selecting the editor from the top menu. As you can see, you can find the timer script we just created here. The editor is divided into 5 sections. Above the script tree on the right side, we see the button for Out as well as one to comment. This is particularly helpful for testing new scripts and for debugging, since the commented part of a script is not processed. Generally, comments would always be used to structure the code, and to make it easier for others to read and understand the code. The magnifying glass symbolizes, as the third button, the search and replace function, and can also be called up using the Control F function. Under this, we find the script tree. The script tree is meant to simplify the process of working with scripts. For this, we have included a number of predefined functions and examples, which can be inserted simply by double-clicking on them. Under the point Data, we can find all the data sources that have been set up in the Explorer, as well as their characteristic functions. For example, the time data source contains functions like format or Lua date. Over format, the date analog can be changed into the format function of a control in this way. At the next point, variable, we can find all of the variables and lists from the Explorer, as well as their characteristic functions. For example, the corresponding toString function for a variable of the number type. Under the point data flows, we can find all of the data flows from the Explorer, as well as their characteristic functions. For example, a previously aggregated column of a data flow can be called up in this way. The point Screens allows us to look into all of the controls from the screen that have been assigned a control name, as well as the characteristic functions of those controls. Under Resources, we can find all of the resources from the Explorer, as well as their characteristic functions. In the so-called timer scripts, we can find the relevant functions for the timer. I'll go into more specific detail on the different types of scripts later. The functions dealing with visibility or to color controls in one way or another can be found under the point Types. Under the point Runtime, we see all the general functions and settings. If, then, a message or similar should be displayed, this needs to be defined under the runtime functions. Besides this, network administrative functions can be created here, which can then be executed as the visualization runs. A selection of standard functions can be found under the point Function. It's always worth it to check here first to consider using one of the available functions when creating a new script, since this allows us to save a great deal of time. Under Peakboard, we can, for example, set up an output to the log of the Peakboard runtime using peakboard.log. Control contains a simplified function to make controls visible or invisible as needed. Date contains common functions to work with a date or a time. The functions do not, however, replace the time data source. Rather, they broaden the spectrum of the pre-configured functions for time manipulation. String functions can also be used to process texts. Math contains several functions for managing numbers. For example, the toNumber function can be used to transfer a number from the data type string to the data type number. SQL functions are primarily used in writing to SQL. SAP functions offer a number of examples for the management of an SAP data source. Under Mail, we can find the pre-configured functions for sending emails over Peakboard. The brush function is used to color something with the help of a hex code. The tree on the left side allows us to navigate through the various scripts without being forced to leave the editor. In the center area, the script is entered. With the help of the validation function, the script can be tested for any potential errors. If any errors are present in the script, the line containing the error will be pointed out directly to help the user identify problems. If there are multiple errors in the script, the topmost line containing an error will always be shown. Now, after covering a basic overview of the script editor, we're going to take a closer look at the specific areas where we can even apply scripts. Timer scripts are only ever used when an action needs to be executed just once, or in a regular rhythm. For example, a PDF where a new page should be displayed every 3 seconds in a sequence. In global events, we can define functions which can be called up using a variety of different methods. Just like global functions, global events can also be called up using a number of different ways. These are made up of classical inputs using external input devices, such as, for example, touchscreen monitors, keyboards, mice, or presenters. When swiping, the entry method here is typically a touchscreen monitor. Alternatively, the swiping effect can also be used with a mouse. The key press script is always executed when a key or button on an input device is pressed, for example on a presenter or perhaps a keyboard. The key entry script, on the other hand, is only executed when an entry is completed by pressing enter, at which point it transfers the entry over e.text. This type of function is used, for example, by barcode scanners, which use this process to transmit the scanned barcode. Under the point script error, we can define what will happen when a script error occurs. A script under the corresponding point can also be used to manage an error during the update of a data source. Scripts that are set up under the next point, monitor activation, will always be executed when a monitor is activated. Under the point data update, we can put scripts which are always executed either when a data source is loaded or when new data is available. Under the point for controls, all scripts that were created via the events function of a control will be displayed. These events are particular actions that can be triggered with the help of a control. Scripts are then attached to these events, which are then always executed when an event is triggered. In order to create an event, we need to click on Event in a control. Then, we can select the corresponding event. Here, different events can be set up for particular controls. For example, a tapped event can be executed every time that a user clicks a button. Now that we've covered how the script editor works and where scripts can be used, we've reached the end of our tutorial today. Thanks very much for watching. For more information about scripting basics, please visit our help site, which is linked in the description, or leave us a comment below. Also, check out the other videos in our channel to find more tutorials in which more complex scripts are created.